80% of millennials looking for a culture fit. Now, this doesn't surprise me one bit because it ties in certainly the research I did with in other areas, like where 10, 15 years ago, CSR, being corporate social responsibility or community social responsibility, was not the level of conversation it is.
Yep.
15 years ago, people wouldn't make purchasing decisions as much based on how a company operates in terms of their ethics, or are they running cheap factories overseas? Are they damaging the environment? Are they doing grassroots? So to some degree, this one doesn't surprise me when it goes 80% of millennials look for the cultural fit first based on what that company is doing versus their direct career potential.
Yep, 100%. I think businesses who have the ability to understand the new era of individuals coming through are the ones that will have the most success. You cannot operate the business like, when I came into the industry, you could not run a business the way I entered this industry. It just wouldn't work, right? So the businesses who are agile and can adapt with the times and understand the new breed of individuals coming through and how they want to be treated and how they want to work will be the ones that will be successful. I like to bring sporting analogies into a lot of things. So Man United's my football team. And you look at Jose Mourinho, right? And his management style didn't cater for the young, impressionable individuals who sometimes needed a bit of a cuddle, right? And so he didn't work out. Whereas you look at a Solskjaer who's coming in now, or you look at a Pochettino, or you look at a Pep Guardiola, they're all about knowing when to give someone a cuddle and when to approach things in the right way. And those are the managers that will have a long-term success. So I think relating it back to business, you've got to understand that not one person, or one group of individuals can be managed in the same way. You've got to tailor your management style and your business style to help.
I think that leads into a broader conversation about, as a leader or a manager, being a leader, your skill set to adapt and know how to get the best out of people. I think that, but that cultural piece, it's definitely knowing what your culture is and consciously carving it. People always bring and add to that culture by default. Yep. They're adding to that culture. But you've got some core foundations. What's the strengths of our culture?
Yep.
What's the direction of our culture? What's the skills? And there's pillars. I mean, I've got full talks, as you know. We've done work on this together.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we have.
But I think it's definitely something we're seeing more. That one didn't surprise me. Here's one that kind of does surprise me. And again, I pulled these from a bunch of different sources. I was just curious what you thought. 50% of candidates wouldn't work with a company with a bad reputation, no matter how much they're being paid.
Yeah.
Just that one. There's a reason why that one stood out for me, but I'm just curious what you think. 50% of candidates won't work for a company with a bad reputation, no matter the amount they're paid.
I think if you look at it from the other, putting the shoe on the other foot, when we were talking about employers looking for candidates, I think candidates also need to do their own due diligence and look into the businesses. And the amount of times I've called somebody about a role and it's an amazing opportunity, and then they call me 10 minutes later and say, "Oh, I've actually read a review. I'm not going to be interested." And that is the world that we live in now. You want to book a hotel, you'll look at the reviews, and if there's one bad review from one individual, you go, "Oh, that sounds terrible." Yes, I think you need to use that information, but don't automatically disregard something without actually investigating yourself. I always say to people, if you've read a bad review about a company or a manager or a business or whatever, go and judge for yourself. Go and see that person and ask them to explain why it is that this is the scene, and you'll know whether that's the right opportunity for you. Again, it's about that transparency. You should be able to go into a business and ask questions from a candidate perspective to make sure that decision you're making is right. But yeah, in terms of the question, I can imagine, and we see it a lot in every walk of life and everything that we do, is that we make decisions based on what we read on the internet. And again, so I don't have any doubt that
Which is back to that point, I guess. So there's a couple of reasons, and it's the context of it, right? I mean, I'm deliberately splatting that out with you because it's a great talking point, and I think you're right. It's the context, right? Because for me, there's a couple of things. Yes, we already know people are using social reading. I know CEOs that one of their biggest stresses in this world, I've had this conversation with them about it, is their reviews on Glassdoor.
Yeah.
right? That's the one thing that keeps them awake at night. But let's also be real that quite often, and this, you can see this everywhere. Who takes time to write reviews these days in the first instance is usually people that are actually angry and upset because they've not got something they wanted. And that's not to negate the fact there wasn't a problem, but let's be real, right? How many
100%.
people go out of their way to, I have an amazing experience and I then proactively go and write, or have a great experience, you're wonderful, thanks so much. It's just the fact that more people will go out the way when they've got an axe to grind and write a problem than they will to give a good review.
And the one tip to businesses in those situations is do not ask your employees who are in your business to go and write a positive review in replacement of that one.
No, that's the other thing.
Yeah, it's one of the most worst things that you can do. I read a book recently on ownership. Jocko Willink, absolute great book on Jocko Willink. He's a ex Navy SEAL. I don't know, he's a commanding officer.
We talked about we talked about yes.
And it's talk about it's extreme ownership. That's what it's called. The book is called Extreme Ownership. I think as leaders, as businesses, if you try and pretend that something isn't there, or try and pass the buck onto somebody else, you're losing the opportunity that is given to you when you're provided that feedback. So the best advice I can give to businesses when you receive a bad review is address it. Speak to that individual, acknowledge the mistakes that you make, because that will absolutely represent your brand so much better. You can see it on businesses, and I've seen it many a times, where you've got 10 bad reviews in a row and then all of a sudden there's 5 good ones, and you can see it may not be, but
it's the perception though. You're anchoring. It's the perception of value, which it is. There's a perception there. Is that authentic? Is that just the kind of measure?
Yeah, you've got to, if someone's disgruntled, if somebody leaves your business, and I take it, personally, that if somebody leaves my team, my business, I want to know what I could have done to help them, specifically if they were good at their role and how they can do it. But if they weren't good at the role, what could I have done better to improve them, or should I have been directing them into another area that could have been more suitable to them? So, I think acknowledge the fact that if somebody's left and has put a bad review on, take ownership of it, understand it, acknowledge it to everybody to see, hey, I understand, I can see that you've got an issue. Let's have a conversation about it. We want to make sure this doesn't happen again. That is so much more appreciated, I think, when you're if you're somebody looking at a business and how they approach these negative reviews, you'll automatically raise your profile for those individuals coming in.
I agree. You know what? When you finally read the book itself, Jaryd, you'll see there's a story in there that's specifically on this from my first ever tour of feedback, where you get, when you've got a bunch of people telling you the same thing, there's a learning there for you.
100%.
If you've got one angry employee and you kind of know it's just about being really honest and self-reflective and looking and going, could there be something in that, rather than just writing off or trying to kind of measure it, going, but we need to look good. It's just being really authentic, real self-reflective, and going, what can I learn from that as well? 100%. I think that's a great point. Great point.